then when I eventually came out the other side from having the eating disorder and was on a real steady path, that's when I decided, oh my gosh, I really want to be able to help other people how I've been helped.
All right. Hello, and welcome back to You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions. We're in Iowa. We're still doing telehealth sessions. We're still doing in-office sessions, in-school sessions, now starting last week and the week before. And we're also doing in-home behavioral health intervention for kids.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am the vice president in charge of the BHIS department. So that is the program where we go in home, in school, or telehealth as well, and work with children ages 4 through 18 on different behavioral skills. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
All right. So we post on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Central Time. So we always recommend batch up your laundry or your walking or whatever task you hate doing, but that you've got to do to survive and have clean clothes, have food for the rest of the week. If you want to do a meal prep on Sunday night, to go ahead and listen to that week's episode. That gives you that entire week to get connected with our guest from that week or to get in touch with your own counselor if you haven't seen them in a little bit. All right, so we've got a guest today. We've got Kate Hudson-Hall joining us. Welcome, Kate. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to talk about Kate a little bit. So Kate is the author of Bulimia Sucks, the Bulimia Sucks personal workbook, which is an accompanying workbook to Bulimia Sucks. And then also there is a food journal that Kate has developed and created that also goes along with Bulimia Sucks, the book, and with the personal workbook that you can write in and kind of create and make your own. So we're really, really excited to have Kate here because Kate was able to use her experience experiencing anorexia and bulimia, use that experience, use the healing that she went through and the process that she went through to get herself healthy, and use that to help other people who are going through those similar situations. So Kate she's a psychotherapist. She's also a hypnotherapist, which I'm very interested in hearing about. She's also a neuro-linguistic programmer, which is really, really cool. And then also practices EFT, emotional freedom technique. So a lot of different techniques that Kate uses in her practice to be able to help people that are suffering from anorexia, bulimia, I'm sure a whole host of other things. So Kate, welcome. And thank you so much for being here. And so tell us about Bulimia Sucks, because I love this title that you've got here. So what is this book about, and what led you to write it?
Oh gosh, well, so let me start at the beginning. So when I was 18, I developed bulimia, and I had it for 15 years. And obviously it was a traumatic time for me. I had a very difficult time with it. And then my mother over the years has been trying to get me to go and get some help. And of course, I wasn't ready to do that. And eventually she took me to the doctor, and they referred me to see a psychiatrist. And then I was diagnosed with bulimia and anorexia. And then they referred me to a counselor then. And it's interesting because at that time, I really wasn't ready to get help, but I was kind of pushed into it. And I didn't feel that this counselor was wasn't working for me, even though I would go every week, but I didn't feel I was gaining anything from it. So anyway, so we separated ways, and then I decided that I would go and find my own private counselor. So I did, and I saw her for maybe about 6 months. and I still didn't really feel right for me. And then I separated ways from her. And then over time, as I began to work with breaking free from the eating disorder, I finally found a therapist that I ended up spending 4+ years with. And she helped me through so many different traumas that I'd had in my life and that I was having. And then when I eventually came out the other side from having the eating disorder and was on a real steady path, that's when I decided, oh my gosh, I really want to be able to help other people how I've been helped by this one particular therapist. So hence why I set myself on that pathway to become a therapist, because it was just such a dire, desperate need to be able to help others that are going through such a difficult time. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, that's how it's unfolded. But it was that one therapist that I was seeing for the number of years that really, I really gained so much from her. And I say now, because when I was seeing her before, or when I was seeing her, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and my father died when I was 2. So my mother was like a mother and father rolled into one. And she got cancer. But she only had it for 2 years, and then she suddenly died. And so I do believe if I wasn't seeing that therapist at that time, I wouldn't be here today. I truly believe that. So anyway, back to your question. So then training to be a therapist and working as a therapist and then working with people with eating disorders, I wanted to be able to reach out to a wider audience. And then I was like, oh, I know, I'm going to write a book of how I help my clients overcome eating disorders or work with eating disorders. So the Bulimia Sucks main book is, a quarter of it is my memoir of what I went through, the horrific experiences, living with an eating disorder. And then the rest of it is self-help, different ways and patterns and behaviors that you can change if you have bulimia and other eating disorders. So there's my answer. We got there in the end.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been quite a journey, it sounds like, getting to this point where you are using those experiences along the way to help people that you may not have ever even met. But through this book and through this workbook and through the food journal, you're able to impact their day-to-day lives and support them through your work and through the book. So I love what you said about wanting to reach a wider audience, because through the book, you're able to do that in addition to your one-on-one work with your clients.
And I also set up a podcast called Bulimia Sucks. So yeah, so that's been up and running for a couple of years now. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, when you say that you had bulimia, and how did you come to realize that? And then it sounds like your mother also was wanting to help support you or help you through that process. How did she come to realize that you were struggling here?
Well, the reason for me why it started was a suggestion that somebody gave me when I was 18. And even though I'd had all sorts of traumatic experiences, like I was sexually abused when I was 9, and I never spoke to anybody about it until I was with that therapist. So when I was in my late 20s, 30s, I actually opened up to her about it, but that was the first time I ever talked about it. And I had other different experiences when I was younger. But this one suggestion was, oh, did you know, this friend of mine said, did you know if you eat a Mars bar and make yourself sick, oh, you won't put weight on? And my mind ran with that. And it just goes to show how powerful one suggestion can be. to a child, to an adult, to whoever. And so that's sort of what set me on that pathway. And then I ran with it. So, so although at the time I had no idea what was wrong with me, I just thought I was going mad, completely mad. And also, I remember my friend saying to me, which is really interesting, she said to me when I was in the depths of the bulimia, she said to me, why are you always the one that never talks about your feelings? When we all get together, we all talk about our feelings and what's going on, but you're the one that you never ever talk about your feelings. And I didn't understand at all what she was saying. I didn't know what a feeling was. I didn't know what was going on. I just thought I was going crazy.
Absolutely.
Because I couldn't control the behavior, and I would, binge and purge multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a horrific disease. And then because at the time I was living in the States in Chicago for 5 years, and then when I moved back over to the UK, and I had to live with my mother, and then they knew anyway what was going on, but they didn't really, back in those days, because it was in the 1800s, they didn't, I know, I'm quite old, there was no help out there, which was part of the problem. They didn't know what to do, they didn't know what to say. And so she knew, and it was very obvious when I was living with her, and a couple of times she did try to approach me about it, and I didn't like that very much, and I completely denied it. Mm-hmm. But having said that, it was, even if you had a loved one that had an eating disorder and you didn't know what to do or where to go, it is having the knowledge, getting online and there's so much information in my book. There's a bit of information about how to approach your loved one with an eating disorder, and approaching them about it. And if they shut the door on you like I did, that's okay, because you're beginning to set the seed for them to be able to gradually, eventually they will let you in.
Absolutely. It goes along with that power of suggestion that you talked about before, right? Somebody had brought up this idea that, hey, did you know you could eat what you want and not gain weight? And that suggestion, that seed, right, was so powerful. Yeah. And in the inverse, the suggestion or thought of seeking treatment or seeking help or seeking support can also be so powerful, even if the person does not pursue that, even if they're not like, wow, that's a great idea and go do that, right? But planting that seed is so important. And I love what you're sharing and being able to normalize here about, so when somebody else wants us to go to get support for ourselves or to get help for ourselves, we're not always open to that. We're not always ready for that. And it can feel very intrusive, but it can plant that seed to where that therapist was not a good fit. And then the next therapist was not a good fit, but that next therapist, and there's always that next support person, or that hope of that next support person or that next person to work with, right? That next book you might pick up, right? That might have the one thing in it that changes the way we think about ourselves, or that we think about that one seed. And there's always hope for that one seed. And I think that, the way that your experience is demonstrating how that first therapist, it might not be a good fit, and that's okay, because you were able to find that therapist that really was a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also love what you said about that therapist being there and having that therapeutic relationship with that person. You didn't go into those counseling sessions with grief and loss, right? Presenting with grief and loss at that time. But when we go through things in life, when we go through losses in life and dramatic changes in life, having that therapeutic relationship already established can just change everything. Because the idea of when we lose a loved one, or have a lot of upheaval in our lives, and we don't have somebody established that can support us, the idea of in that moment trying to establish a therapeutic relationship, if that had been the start, you were going through these other two therapists trying to find this one while you were in the grips of all of that, so much more difficult. So I love what you're normalizing here too about, we might not know what is coming. We don't know what's coming tomorrow. But having that therapeutic relationship kind of built and ready for us, ready to catch us when those things happen is so important. So I love that share. So the book it's somewhat autobiographical, but it's also informative, has information. And then it sounds like it's not only beneficial to people who are suffering from anorexia or bulimia, but also their support people, the people that love them.
Yes, absolutely. There is there's for parents and family, there's a downloadable information that is in the book that can help and guide you to begin to take those steps to approaching your loved one, because I think it is all about them having, the parent or the loved one having knowledge about what they feel is their loved one's eating disorder, and having some knowledge and having the information to be able to guide them forward, but to be there to listen and ask them how they're feeling, and ask them see how much you can find out from them, how much they're willing to talk to you, but be willing to sit and listen is so important.
Eating disorders are very misunderstood. There's so much misinformation about them because I think on the surface it looks like a choice. And when you talked about being controlled by it, and where you said, I couldn't control it. I wanted to control it. I couldn't control it. And I think that because there's so much, a lot of times we get into it because we are looking for some control, right? And it feels like there is some control at first, but it's an illusion of control. There isn't any. And then we realize, I don't have any control, actually, right? I thought I was gaining more control with some of these things, right? And then I realized, nope, it's got me. And what a scary place to realize we are, and especially how you went through it, not knowing what it was, like just thinking like, this is something wrong with me. Like I'm, that feeling of maybe I'm the only person who has experienced this feeling, because the media and television, we don't have a very good understanding of eating disorders as
and it's not talked about at all, really, in comparison with other problems, other issues that people have. And when I had it, it wasn't it was actually, bulimia was actually officially given the label, diagnosed, if you like, in 1979. So by the time Princess Diana came out and she wrote a book and talked about her bulimia, that was in, I don't know, late 80s or something. And that was so huge. And that was sort of when people, particularly in the UK, started to realize and maybe slightly open up to it. But even now, it's because it's such a secretive disease, people don't talk about it. Many people have it, but they just don't talk about it.
Absolutely. And it's, a lot of the symptomology is that of what we find with addiction, right? I mean, it's that, but it's got that physical component as well, which makes it so much more complicated than some other addictions. It also involves things that people don't think about with addiction, right? So when we hear the word addiction, we think about heroin, right? Like we think about drugs and cigarettes and alcohol. And we don't think about food because everybody eats food, right? Everybody is used to food. Most of the time people see food as a safe a safe substance or something that is safe, and it's not safe for everybody, either the restricting of it or the over consuming of it, or all of the pieces of it. None of it is is safe for some people. But it's difficult. And I think it adds to the shame of the disease, because other people don't understand it the way that they do when you say, I'm an alcoholic, right? Or I'm addicted to heroin. People understand that and they go, well, good, don't do heroin. But when it comes to, I think, our diet culture, right? When it comes to anorexia in particular, I think that a lot of times it gets brushed off because people are hoping to lose weight. Like, other people are like, no, I'm not hoping to be addicted to heroin, but like, I would love to weigh 90 pounds, right? And so I think that contributes to the shame and the feeling of isolation that we can have with eating disorders, because it's like, can I express to somebody else what's going on internally, when what it sounds like sometimes to other people is like, I'm too thin, right? It's like when we say I'm too rich, right? Like, that's not, it's difficult, right? To find that connection, I think, with other people who haven't maybe experienced anything similar.
Absolutely. And also with bulimia, because it's people have no idea why you would do such a behavior, and they don't, so that they don't understand it, as I didn't.
Absolutely.
And it was just a behavior that I had to control how I felt. Because it's not about the food, it's about the feelings and the behaviors. Understanding that, isn't it?
And I thought it was so interesting what your friend had said about, how, hey, when we're all talking about how we feel, like, you don't talk about how you feel. And it's not always safe to talk about how we feel. Like, that idea of being able to express those things verbally, even to our friends, not safe. And especially in situations where we've had sexual assaults, or we've had something where, like, we can't say those things to anybody. And if we can't say that, how can we share anything about who we are? Because so much of how we feel, or what triggers us, comes back to those things that we can't say to people, because it's not safe, especially as a child, right? It's not safe, or it doesn't feel safe always. So I just think that's so interesting, and I love that you're coming at this workbook and your book and your podcast.
But I have just written another book, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, what is it?
It is called Anxiety Hacks: Techniques, Tools and Tips to Calmness. So I'm very excited about it, because hopefully it's going to come out at the end of next month, because I'm just finalizing the book cover and the format is almost finished. So it's all coming together now. So I'm very excited about that, because of course people with eating disorders and anxiety is everywhere.
Absolutely. What are some of those the anxiety hacks that we can look forward to reading about?
So, I love the emotional freedom technique, the tapping technique. So I take them through all the steps of that, and then show them specifically how they can use it for their anxieties. So it's, for people who don't know, it's tapping on a routine of points while thinking about any negative feeling, and you can reduce that down. So it's like acupuncture without the needles. And I love it. So I teach that. And then there are a number of different NLP techniques in there. So Neuro-Linguistic Program techniques, which are simple techniques that you can take yourself through the steps to be able to have tools to be able to calm yourself. And for each, so I've also made a companion course, which includes videos of me showing you how to do each of the techniques. There's 15 techniques in it, and then there's other, in the companion course, there's other downloadable tables and sheets and information. And yeah, there's a lot of things in the book, a lot of different ways that you can experiment to find out what works for you to be able to begin to get yourself into a calmer place.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I think that emotional freedom technique doesn't get a lot of press. It really doesn't get a lot of acknowledgement. And so I think that that's wonderful that you're able to kind of normalize that for people as well through the book and through your coursework of this is something that you can do yourself at home. So
yeah, and it's such a simple, once you've learned the points, then you can use it for anything, any difficult negative feeling that you have, can't you? So brilliant.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing about that one, because we'll definitely be looking for that as well. Anxiety hacks, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. I always love a good life hack. Those are very important as we try to navigate our day. So wonderful. So if you, and I know that you are not only an author, but you're also a psychotherapist and you work individually with people. But if you could give a suggestion to somebody who maybe was not certain that they had an eating disorder, right? But maybe was concerned about some disordered eating in themselves, but not quite sure what it's called and what the symptoms are. What suggestion might you give that person who's maybe on the fence about starting to look into this disease?
Well, my suggestion, the very first step would be for them to contact a doctor and go and see a doctor. That's what I would suggest. And then have the doctor take it from there. Yeah, that's what I would suggest. But of course, another avenue would be for them to, have a look online and have a look at all the different types of eating disorders and see, what they feel, what they can, what information they can learn from online. But the first port of call would be to go and see a doctor and talk to your doctor about it, I would suggest.
Very, very good advice. I think that sometimes people, they've heard the terms anorexia, bulimia, they've heard about binge eating disorder, but they're not quite sure what it is. So and aren't quite sure where to start. And so starting with your primary doctor is a great place to start, and not a place that everybody might think of.
Yeah.
I think like WebMD is so prevalent, right? And like let me Google symptoms. And so I love this idea to go to your doctor. Excellent. And then it's about educating ourselves, right? About this disease and the things that we've gone through, and being able to hear that we're not alone in that. We're not the only person who has experienced that, when it can sure seem like that some of the times. So the work that you're doing is so important. And the podcast is Bulimia Sucks, right?
Yes, on all the major platforms. And I'm going to start up an anxiety hacks one. That's my plan as well.
Very nice. Oh, that'll be great. Yep. Hacks are so helpful, and especially for anxiety, because it sneaks up on us. And we don't always know where we're going to be. Or am I going to be behind a wheel when I start having these feelings, right? Or am I going to be at my in-laws' house at dinner when I start having these feelings? So having those strategies in our pocket is so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
To read that as well when it comes out.
I'm Kate Hudson-Hall and I need a counselor now.
Absolutely. Awesome. So do we, so do I, so does Chrissa. Everybody does. So if you're listening, if that first counselor is not right for you, you can follow Kate's lead. Keep trying. Just keep trying, because you never know when that next person is going to come your way, and you never know what you're going to need them for if that counseling relationship continues to evolve throughout the rest of your life. So definitely check out Kate's podcast, Bulimia Sucks. We'll be excited for the new podcast and anxiety hacks, and then check out the Bulimia Sucks book, workbook, and food journal as well. So thank you so much for being here, Kate. This was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been lots of fun. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. So if you are in Iowa in the United States and you're looking for a counselor, you can give us a call at 800-531-4236.
And like Julie mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we post new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central. So save up whatever task you hate doing and listen to us at the same time that you do it. And we can help convince you to reach out to our guest that we had that week or to contact your counselor to get set up with services. And if you have any questions for us or for Kate, you can reach out to us on our Facebook page at You Need a Counselor Podcast or on our Instagram at You Need a Counselor Podcast. So I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
Bye.